lens, like the way in which you have been trained and socialized and conditioned to see women has no bearing on the different place, the different place where those images are represented, where those images come from, the location of those places. I think that the way that we as boys and men are socialized and conditioned in this country is to see women as sexual beings, and that's it. And when I went to Senegal, and I was in Dakar and other places in Senegal, I did see women with their breasts out, but it wasn't in a sexual context. It was a very, very different context. So the way in which we have been indoctrinated in this country is affecting the way in which we look at women around the world in ways that's not fair to those women, because we're looking at them in a sexualized way, and that's not their world. That's not how they seek to represent themselves, and that's not the way the people in their nation, seek to represent them.
Mind you,
so I'm saying it all comes back to these misunderstandings that we started out talking about.
It's not a misunderstanding. Mind you, the titties that I saw were in a National Geographic.
Understood.
Right? So that was one page with some titties. Oh, and here go the pyramids, and here go this, and here go that.
So maybe it was and I'm just playing devil's advocate. It could be that your initial contact with titties, or you know what I'm saying, may have been in Penthouse or Playboy or something that shaped your thinking around what a woman's breast represents.
We can't control that. That's the point I'm trying to push. We can't. We're not Sigmund Freud tried. Let me finish. Sigmund Freud and Leo Strauss tried very hard to control people into saying, hey, I'm going to show you this image, and I'm going to show you this image, and then you're going to go out and buy a coat, right? And it's the person, they showed them this image, showed them that image, and that person went out and bought a car, right? You can't control how someone is going to interpret, process, analyze, and act after the fact, right? You can have an impact. You can have an impact and you can influence, but at the end of the day, you can't control it, right? And so, because you can't control it, that person is responsible for his consequences, for his own consequences of how he uses and what he uses to influence him to do a certain thing. We can't control that. The opposite of that is you're saying that what we put out, now we're responsible for it, right? We're responsible for putting that out and making that guy go shoot somebody, right? So that means we're an accomplices to murder. Fat Joe's an accomplice to murder. Big L's an accomplice to murder. Jay-Z is an accomplice to murder. Everybody who ever spoke about shooting somebody on the record is an accomplice to murder.
I say
right?
yes.
And I disagree, because people were murdering people before they even put out records.
And I would say that even before then too. I'm not saying, because you have to place hip hop, as Tony did, in the larger context of American culture and American masculinity, which is hyper-violent. It's hyper-violent. And so what Fat Joe learned about violence and his association with manhood, he learned from American culture.
Actually, African tribal violence is way more violent than American violence.
In some cases, and Asian too, and all the other continents. But I was going to say something real quick, right? It's going back to how we're describing masculinity and how we're describing all these things. I aspire to be a feminist. I understand that there's certain things that are ingrained in me that makes me act in sexist ways that I don't even always realize. And sometimes my friends, especially women, pointing out to me and saying, you're being sexist. And I'm like, what? All those social identity classes and all this stuff. What do you mean? But then they're correct. So I think the point I was going to make sometimes is how we talk about, titties out and all this other stuff, and the raunchiness and the gore and all that. But some of your most favorite socially conscious artists are sexist. And I think that's a part of, in this exploration of hip hop, we should talk about how I would consider myself a feminist or working towards it, but then there might be something in one of my songs that is sexist. I'm trying to figure that out myself, you know what I mean? So I think that, yes, let's talk about sexism and let's talk about the raunchy parts and the part that objectifies and degrades women, but let's also talk about the person who's not trying to do that, but because of the way they've been socially indoctrinated and their identity are in fact sexist in some ways. I think that's another aspect of the music we're talking about that is not often explored.